we have the I'm going to call him the Northern Dynamo himself. Last time, do you know, last time I had a meeting with him, he started calling me various nicknames. So it's about time that I do the same thing to him. The Northern Dynamo himself, Sam Cooke. Now, we partnered with Blue Bricks magazine. Oh, what do you think, Laura? A month ago? 2 months ago?
I'm going to go with a month and a half.
I'm going to go with a month and a half. We'll say a month and a half. And it's not a typical partnership for us because traditionally we like to stick to products. And we also don't really like to venture into things that are kind of specifically for property, if that makes sense. Because what we end up doing is annoying bloody everyone and their dog because they've all got their competitive companies. But we made a bit of an exception for Sam. The reason being and I hope that this is going to come across, I'm sure it's going to come across tonight, the passion and energy that Sam gives to his, not just the company, but the communities that he builds is something that I have not seen for a very long time. Maybe once or twice since I've been at LMPG have I seen someone with this passion. It's reminiscent of Nick at the very beginning of LMPG, of what he was trying to build. So the talk tonight is all about that. I spoke to Sam about, you're always sharing people's stories as property investors to make them more investable, to build their communities. And Sam has a unique ability himself of going around and talking to people and asking them questions about themselves and getting them to open up in such a way that I just don't really see it elsewhere. So this is something that we could all have a little bit. So what I'm hoping to do with Sam tonight, we're going to get him like a little orange, we're going to grind him against the zester, and we'll all have a little bit of that zest in ourselves to be able to get out there into the wide world. And as someone arguing with my metaphor, because it was not planned, believe it or not, get out there ourselves and do the same thing and build these communities in such a way that it's not just about elevating ourselves, but elevating everyone that we see as well. So without further ado, Sam, do you want to jump on and say hello and we can start sharing?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you so much for those kind words. Really appreciate them. Really, really nice of you. And to everyone else, it is an absolute pleasure to meet you virtually this evening. I've been really, really looking forward to this. Obviously, I've been speaking to LMPG for well over a year now. So it's lovely to be sat here and hopefully giving you guys some value this evening that's going to help you to raise private finance, build your own communities, and do better in your property businesses. So shall I just share my slides?
Give it a go. Let's give it a go. We could be here a while, folks. Oh no, hold on.
Did that work?
Fantastic.
So we spoke a little bit about communities, and I will speak about that shortly. But what I really wanted to do tonight was talk about something that I know all investors want to do, or at least 90% of them, which is raising private finance and talking about how you can raise your own profile within the property industry to raise private finance, and why that is so important, even if maybe you are someone who is a little bit nervous about putting yourself out there and getting out of your comfort zone, which is something I'll talk about. So first of all, who are we? Who are Blue Bricks Magazine? If you've not heard of us before, the picture there is one of my favourites. It's Lloyd and Andy from White Box Property Solutions. The reason that's one of my favourite images is that Lloyd and Andy were two people I looked up to at the very start of my property journey, and their issue, the one that they're holding there, was the first ever issue of Blue Bricks Magazine I put together. So it's very special for me. So Blue Bricks Magazine, as you can probably guess by the name and the image, is a magazine for property investors and property developers. But how are we different to some of the bigger names out there like YPN and that kind of thing? Well, we focus on targeting more experienced, more advanced property investors and landlords like yourselves, typically people who have got experience in property and now want to go to that next level. So our readers are very passionate about property. They tend to be career landlords and people who don't just want property to be a retirement for them or a pension, but they view property as a business. So we are a bi-monthly magazine, but we also run what we call a community of property investors. So we have network events across the UK, and we also have online events too, where our members can come together and collaborate. I call them networking events because that's what everyone else calls them, but really not that. When people come to our events, you see people laughing, joking, speaking to each other, looking at deals together, doing business together, helping each other. We're not about just throwing business cards about. We're about helping each other, coming together and building those strong communities. So we interview some of the biggest names in the industry, just to drop a few in that I've been speaking to recently. Alfie Best, who's also the self-proclaimed gypsy billionaire, people like John Howard from Sky TV, people like James Sinclair, it's built a £40 million property and business portfolio. So the people that we interview and the people that we put in the magazine are at the absolute top of the game. And like Ant said, it's kind of my job to go out there, interview them in the right way, ask the right questions, so I can get as much knowledge and as much value from them that I can then put in a magazine and share with our readers. So, yeah, I've kind of skipped over this one already, but this is some examples of our previous issues. Like I say there, James Sinclair in the top right. You might recognise Paul Million. I'm going to tell you a really interesting story about Paul later on in this presentation and how it can relate to you. Some other faces there you might recognise. Ellie McKay from, she runs one of the biggest business podcasts in the UK currently, On a Mission. And then you've also got people like Jamie York. So we interview all the people that are doing really well, people like Ranjan Bhattacharya, Sarah McDermott, get their knowledge, get their advice, and then share it with our readers. But who am I? So my name's Sam Cooke. I'm the editor of Blue Bricks magazine. I'm an official partner of LMPG, which you can see there on the image on the left, rows between two fonts. And the image on the right is me running our event in London. So I was the marketing director for Blue Bricks magazine back in 2021. I've got a bit of a strong history in property, starting out as an estate agent and then going into sourcing. You might remember in lockdown when we had the government kickstart scheme where you could basically hire someone for £2 and a packet of peanuts. Well, that was me for Blue Bricks, and it was kind of my mission to take this brand new company and to get the name out there, get the brand out there, get more members, make them well known. I won't go into the ins and outs, but Blue Bricks was owned by a private equity firm, and the owner of the private equity firm who bought and sold businesses took me under his wing, mentored me, taught me how to buy and sell businesses, and kind of took me from a young kid that didn't know much about business and mentored me into, you know, the things that he'd done to build a multi-million pound business. That person then sold Blue Bricks magazine to me last year. And just like you guys maybe flip properties, Blue Bricks was very much that. So when I took Blue Bricks on, it was a wonderful product, and we had a weird kind of fan base that we had, a little small fan base. It was like a cult following. And it was my job to fix some of the problems, and more importantly, stop it from losing money and make it profitable. Pleased to say that in a year's time, we've grown the readership to 14,000, brought advertisers on board and partners like LMPG, opened events across the UK, made the business profitable, which is a big win. Today, I was viewing a castle that we're going to be hosting our own property awards ceremony at. So huge things in the space of a year. And that's where the passion comes through, because it's taken a lot of hard work to get to this point. That passion and that hard work has got me finalised for the SME Cambridgeshire Business Awards. I will find out the results tomorrow, but I could be walking away with a trophy for Young Business Person of the Year. Fingers crossed. One of my competitors that's at that event is a dog grooming company. No offense to them, but if I lose to a dog grooming company, I will be a little bit upset. So it could be a huge win or a huge loss tomorrow.
Probably, Sam, the dog grooming company has one advantage over you, being that they're from Cambridge. How on earth have you ended up at the Cambridge show?
That's a really good question, but technically my magazine is national, so I can be anywhere I want to be. And they don't do the SME Keighley Awards or the Bradford Awards because it's a little bit rough around here. So you have to go somewhere a bit more prestigious. So what we believe, so obviously a lot of companies talk about missions, values, kind of thing. I suppose Blue Bricks magazine can really be broken down into three things. So we believe in knowledge, and what I mean by that is you guys will agree in the property industry as a whole, there's a lot of people out there that are talking about get rich quick, and they're spouting a load of nonsense, really, causing a lot of people to lose money and kind of making a laughing stock of the industry. So we don't just believe in sharing knowledge with our readers like some kind of YouTube gurus do, but we believe in sharing the truth. So the good, the bad, the ugly of property. It's not get rich quick, it's the true gritty of being a landlord or an investor. And we believe in values. genuinely try and give as much to our readers as humanly possible, whether it's by opening more events, giving these events, they'll be getting discounts at our awards ceremony. There'll be all kinds of different things that we do for our members to help them. They get offers from some of the people that feature in the magazine, like free consultation calls. So we do as much as we possibly can to give back to our readers and help them in their business. And finally, community. It might sound a bit cheesy, but I genuinely believe that people can change the world, and I believe we can do that if we come together. So with us being across the UK, it's easy to build a business where the membership's fragmented. I want to bring as many people together as we can so that we can help one another make a difference and invest in property in an ethical way that builds good communities. And this is just a couple of examples of the people we work with. So if from the north, you'll recognise Ice and Harrison, but just to show that there's lots and lots of different businesses that partner with us, advertise with us, work with us. So we're kind of quite well done in the industry. Now, that's enough about me. Let's talk about the most important thing this evening, which is you. Now, normally I had an idea. A wise man once said, have a plan, but never be beholden to it. And I was going to ask you to put your hands up, but I see that a lot of screens are off. And I was just going to ask you to tell me a bit about where you're at on your journey. But it's fine, we can skip past that because thankfully I've not based an entire presentation around it. And again, hands up if. So again, don't be beholden to the plan. But so we'll move on to the next part, which is property investors want two things. So with the events I've run, and we run surveys for our members to try and get, what do you guys want? What can we help you with? And there's two things that always come up for all property investors, and that is people want more properties, more deals, and they want more money. This evening, I'm going to be focusing on helping you to raise private finance, but the techniques that I'm going to use technically will help you to get more off-market opportunities too. So tonight we're going to be focusing on the money, and I hope that this helps you. Now, you might see this all the time on Facebook forums, just like I do. People out there saying, I want investors, I want investors, I want investors. I want an investor for my 20% BMV deal in Bristol. And I learned a very, very valid lesson when I was working in private equity, buying and selling businesses. Now, I'm from a background where the only business owner that I knew growing up, I didn't know any business owners other than that. So things like high net worth individuals or large amounts of wealth were foreign to me. So I kind of just painted anyone with a large amount of money as being like a mythical character. I didn't understand it. I didn't know where money came from. When I started working in private equity, I understood that there's lots of different people with money, and these people can take all different kinds of shapes and forms. And I'll give you an example. So my role in the business was to go out there and try and find business owners who were looking to sell. One of the businesses, really bizarre one for you, was the UK's only Catholic magazine, which was one of the businesses that I found and tried to acquire, a little bit different. But I found these business owners who were extremely wealthy. But one of the wealthiest ladies that I ever met in this role was actually someone who didn't own a business, but had an operation with the NHS. And this operation had gone wrong. She'd claimed from the NHS, and she now had £1 million in liquid cash. And she was, hands down, one of the most high net worth investors we met because she had £1 million in liquid, which is rare. And that taught me that while everyone's out there looking for investors and looking for private finance, a high net worth individual isn't this mythical creature. Anyone can be an investor. It can be your grandma, it can be your best friend, it can be a wealthy business owner, it can be a lady who's just won a claim through the NHS. But what these people want are different things. The lady had just claimed through the NHS in a completely different situation and wanted completely different things compared to the business owner that had just sold his business for £500,000. So if you're looking to raise private finance and you're looking to have more private investors, my advice is to get into the real nitty-gritty of who do you want to speak to. This is called your customer avatar, and it's about being as specific as you can. So, the person you want to talk to, this might sound a bit strange. You've got to kind of create a fictional person, but how many kids do they have? What's the name of the kids? What car do they drive? What job do they have, or what business do they run? How many members of staff does that business have? This person, what did they do on the weekends? Where did they spend the time? Who did they spend the time with? If you can start to create this fictional character, they kind of start to come to life. And when you know who this person is, you know two very important things. You then start to know where that person is, and that could be something as simple as on LinkedIn. And you also know what that person wants to hear. So when you find your dream investor, you know how to communicate with them in a way that's going to make them buy into you. Now, all investors, whether there's someone who's just want to claim through the NHS or whether they're a wealthy business owner, every single one of them has one thing in common, and that is that they all want credibility. They want to work with an investor who is credible, someone who they can invest their money in, and they know that their money is going to be relatively safe. And that's where raising your profile comes in. It's about building your credibility so that people trust you, people believe in you, you have so much authority that people are not going to part the money with you easily, but they're going to feel much better about it when they do. Just as an example of what I'm going to tell you tonight works about raising your profile to raise private finance. The gentleman on this front cover here is Paul Million. You might know Paul Million. He runs the property thing in Darlington. He's relatively well known in the industry and is a fantastic guy. Very interesting if you talk to him. Now, Paul featured in Blue Bricks magazine. Funnily enough, it wasn't the issue when he was on the front cover. He actually only wrote a small section for the magazine. And off the back of the feature that Paul wrote, I just noticed a spelling error on there, which annoyed me and threw me off. But on the back of this feature that Paul wrote, a gentleman got in touch with him who was reading the magazine, and Paul ended up receiving £525,000 in private finance from this investor who'd read his article, got in touch with Paul, and then invested in him. So when I'm talking about raising your profile, does it really work? Yes, it does, because that's a substantial amount of money to raise from one magazine feature. Am I saying that if you feature in Blue Bricks or if you feature in any industry magazine, you're going to receive the same results? No, I'm not. But I'm just giving you an example of how raising your profile can help you in your business. So let's move myself out of the way. One way to grow credibility is to raise your profile. But what are the benefits of this? So the benefits of raising your profile, so being more visible, being known by more people, is that you have an increased reach. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a deal in Brighton that you need private finance for, or that you want to source to an investor. If you're not well known and no one knows who you are and you stick it on your Facebook feed, chances are you're not going to get any messages. No one's going to invest in you. No one even knows who you are or what you do. When you raise your profile and you become more well known, that message can then go out to hundreds, if not thousands of people using the wonderful world of social media. And that means that you're going to start to receive more investors coming to you. So what does this mean? This is called the pull game. And it's not me that came up with this concept. It's a gentleman called James Sinclair. So James Sinclair buys and sells businesses, but he works with children's entertainment businesses. So he has an ice cream company. He's also got a teddy bear manufacturing company, really interesting stuff. But he also invests in a lot of commercial property. That business is turning over, like I say, I think 40 or 50 million pounds a year. And I interviewed James and I said, what is kind of the secret to success? And James said that all entrepreneurs are out there playing the push game. So they're knocking on doors, they're trying to get more business by direct messaging people, by annoying people, by posting online. James said that the secret to being a successful entrepreneur is to join the pull game, and that's to pull opportunities towards you. When I asked him what he meant by that, he basically talked about raising his profile. James is now so well known that opportunities come to him. Investors approach him without him even going out there and asking for it because he's raised his profile so much. I'm going to show you how to do that shortly. You want to set yourself apart from the people on the property forums that are offering 20% below market value deals. Any serious investors are laughing these people off for multiple reasons. The main reason is that they are massively breaching FCA regulations. And the moment that any credible investor sees you breaking FCA regulations, they are going to run miles away from you. So set yourself apart from these people, be professional, show that you have authority. Increased trust makes raising finance easier. So if you're hungry and you're in a city, chances are, if you're like me, you're really hungry, you're in a rush. You've got two restaurants to pick from. You've got the franchise chain that you've eaten in a few times before, and it's always been nice food. And then you've got that kind of family-run business that you've never heard of before. Some people will go to the family-run business because they want to help the family-run business out. It makes them feel good. But 90% of people are going to go to the chain because it's reliable, because they've eaten there before, because it's well known. And if something's well known, we tend to believe that it's going to at least be high quality. It's something we can trust because we see it everywhere. So the more you are pushing yourself online, the more you're seen at events, the more you are known by people, and the more you're talked about, the more trust people are going to have in you, even if they've never met you before. And that explains why, some people, we won't name names, but specific property trainers that maybe don't have that much property knowledge, people are spending tens of thousands of pounds with them because they are so well known that people have trust in them. And if they can do that when they don't know what they're talking about, you guys as experienced investors are going to be absolutely fine. And you also attract a higher caliber of investor. Like I said to you at the start of this, anyone can be an investor. You don't just want to work with anyone, though. You want to work with high quality investors that know what they're doing, so that they can help you and guide you if need be, but also the ones that are going to trust you and leave you to it so that you're not receiving phone calls every single night of the week at 8 p.m. from someone who's a little bit worried about the money that they have. How do you grow your profile? And more importantly, how do you do it for free? So one of the things I had to do to make Blue Bricks magazine profitable was, first of all, to make people actually know that it existed. You might think that's easy in this day and age with social media, but the truth is everyone's trying to do the exact same thing with their business. Even the people that aren't involved in property are trying to make themselves well known. So how do you raise your profile? And you've got to remember, we were an unprofitable business. So I couldn't spend thousands of pounds in advertising. I had to raise the profile of Blue Bricks magazine with literally less than no money. I was losing money. So here's a couple of things you can do. Feature on established podcasts or create your own one. But if you can feature on a podcast that's already established and already has a following, do that instead. Post in Facebook groups regularly. So it's fantastic to post on your own social media, but you will just get to a point where you're just hitting the same eyes all the time. I think that Facebook, if I'm remembering correctly, only shows your posts around about 10% of your following, I think. And then the more people engage with it and interact with it, the more it gets seen by people. By posting in Facebook groups, you get different eyes on your content, and not necessarily people that are friends of you and know you already, but maybe people that have never heard of you before. My next tip is to be authentically you. If you're trying to go out there and raise your profile, don't try and be someone you're not. Don't try and act more experienced than you are. I'll give you an example. I don't think I've spoken about this at a presentation before, but when I bought Blue Bricks magazine, one of my biggest fears was that I look young. I know I look young, and I was terrified of this because I thought no one is going to take me seriously. But Blue Bricks magazine isn't about me. It's about the people I interview. It's about people like James Sinclair. It's about Alfie Best. All I do is take their brilliance and put it in the pages of my magazine. So my age doesn't really matter. But I was like, do I go out there and try and pretend I've got more experience than I do? And I just ended up being authentically me. Some people ignore me, and some people are a bit rude to me because of my age, and they basically don't have much faith in me. But a lot of people were drawn to just how open and how honest I was, and like that I was an honest person. And being authentically me has brought me some fantastic people in my network, people like Ant, who saw the passion and saw me how I am, and then give me opportunities like this. So go out there and be authentically you. Don't try and be something you're not. Another thing you can do is apply for awards. I didn't realize this. A lot of the games are rigged. Thankfully, not the award I'm going for, but you can apply for your own awards. So how I thought awards used to work is you would post enough on social media, someone somewhere would see that and then put you forward for an award. And it's true, some people will do that, but typically that's when you get more well known, or you'll win an award, someone will see that you've won that award, so then they'll put you in for their award. It's really weird. But you can actually apply for awards yourself. So there's no rules against this. If you've got the Property Investor Awards, for example, and you've got a really good, really interesting deal, you can put that award in the mix and apply yourself and say why you think that deal that you've done deserves to win an award. So if you see any industry awards, apply for those. Okay, you might not win, but two things will happen. Number one, it will help you with any imposter syndrome you've got, because as you write your own submission, you'll realize just how good you are. And secondly, if you start to win awards, it's a fantastic way to raise your profile. And when you start approaching magazines and you start approaching podcasts and you go there as an award-winning investor, it's a much easier sell. feature yourself or your projects in industry publications. So like Blue Bricks Magazine, HMO Magazine, Property Investor News, YPN. There's plenty of industry publications out there. You can feature yourself or your projects in them. For example, Blue Bricks Magazine, if you email me and if you've got an interesting story and an interesting project, and I think you're right for our readership, and I'll talk a bit about that later, we will feature you in our magazine. You don't have to be famous. You don't have to be James Sinclair. You don't have to have been on television. You can put yourself forward. And a lot of the most amazing features we've had have actually just been people that have emailed and said, look, I think I've got an interesting story. Will you listen to me? So if you think you've got an interesting story or an interesting project and you want to raise your profile, just start emailing these publications because they will respond to you. Speak at online and in-person events. This is a terrifying one for a lot of people. Public speaking is horrifying. I used to be a stand-up comedian, which is something I never talked about before, but some people find it a fun fact, so I started mentioning it. So for me, when I was speaking at in-person events, it was easier because I was dealing with lovely property people like you and not drunk people in the bar in Doncaster. So I found it a bit easier. You might find it scary, but honestly, if you can do it, do it. Speaking at online and in-person events is one of the quickest and most effective ways of raising your profile. If you don't want to speak at events, look at running your own events and create communities like I did. It doesn't have to be a big, flashy, expensive event. You could even have a gathering in your local pub for local investors. You might just take, this is what I did recently, friends and people in your network that you've got that you know would work really, really well together, and then do an online event or meet up regularly once a month. There's lots of different things you can do to create communities, bring people together, and raise your profile at the same time. And the last piece of advice is be dope. Now, this wasn't mine. I think it was Kanye West that said this. But basically, we interviewed a guy called Mike Taylor, who was in the last magazine we did. And Mike Taylor has grown a £5 million marketing agency, and he grew it to 50 members of staff in about 2 years. Huge success in marketing. And I kind of said to him, I'm like, look, you're the top of your game. What's your key advice in marketing? What is it that anyone, anywhere can do that will set their business apart? And he said the answer is to be dope. And what that means is to go against the grain, do something different, be different to everyone else. Don't try and be everyone else. Just be you, be authentically you. I suppose it goes back to that same point, but just be different and stand out. With Blue Bricks, there are YPN magazine, it's probably the biggest in the industry. They've been going since 1999. They've been going since I was born. If I'm going to try and be exactly like them, there's no way I'm going to compete. They've got a much bigger budget than I had at the start. So I had to be different. I had to do something different. And the same with the awards ceremony. That's why we're looking at castles and really big, cool venues, because I don't want to be like everyone else. I want to be different. So if you can, be dope, be different, stand out from the crowd. And one of my other points I wanted to make is that everyone is an expert in something. So you might be sat here going, well, I'm just an investor, or I'm just a landlord, or I'm just Joe Blogs. I don't have anything interesting to say. And that's really not true. There is someone out there that needs to hear what you have to say. They might not realize it yet, and you don't realize it, but someone needs you. It's your duty to go out and find those people and help them. Everyone is an expert in something. This picture here, this is Charlotte Edwards, also known as the accidental female developer. She's featuring in the issue that's literally just gone to print. She's an amazing lady. But Charlotte created a fantastic brand. I mean, she's done brilliant things, but you could just say that Charlotte's a property developer. She's just a female property developer. But she's not. She's so much more than that. She's super inspiring. And Charlotte created a fantastic, authentic brand by talking about the struggles of being a female in a predominantly male-dominated industry. And Charlotte's got 14,000 followers on Instagram now, and tons of people are wanting to invest in her projects. So you're an expert in something. Your story, in its own way, will set you apart from everyone else. So be you, tell your story. You are an expert in something, and there are people out there that want to hear about it. The next point is Google is going to be your best friend or your worst enemy. What do you do when you want to find something out, or if you encounter a new business and you're kind of questioning whether or not to buy from them? Well, the first thing that you do is you Google them. Now, if you're trying to get more investors, if you're trying to get more off-market deals, if someone's never met you before and are going to invest £100,000 in you, they're going to do a little bit of background research and they're going to Google you. Now, when this person Googles you, are they going to find a credible business or a credible person? Or are they going to find nothing at all? Are they going to find, they're literally not going to see your name anywhere? I have a battle because I share the name of a very famous soul singer. Some people will get the reference, some people won't do. It's really easy to tell us apart, though. So if you Google Sam Cooke, you will find a famous soul singer. I'm trying to beat him. It's one of my life ambitions. But you want people to Google you and to find things. So if you Google Sam Cooke Blue Bricks, for example, you'll see a ton of podcasts that are featured on. You'll see our website, you'll see my LinkedIn, you'll see my Facebook, my Instagram, you'll see all kinds of different things. You'll see publications that I've been in. You'll hopefully, fingers crossed, see me as an award winner tomorrow. But the point is that I'm there, I exist online. So if people are going to invest in me or talk to me, they can find me and I'm real. Being partnered with people like LMPG is also fantastic for credibility because they're a brilliant, lovely established company. And when you can be seen alongside these people as well, guilty by association works both ways. You can look really good too. So make sure that there's something when people Google your name. This brings me on to my next part. People say, how did you get the readership and how did you get Blue Bricks so well known so quickly? Because when I first bought Blue Bricks, no one had heard of us, no one knew us. Now, when I go to networking events, not everyone knows us, but I know at least one or two people will have done. I know that someone somewhere in the room knows me. How did I achieve that in a year when I had like not much? We had about 500 people on a MailChimp account, and that was about as far as our reach extended. So how did we grow our profile? Well, we leveraged other people that were more established than us. And this is a key thing that you can do to grow your profile. You don't have to start from scratch, creating your own events, creating your own podcast series. You can just leverage people that are much more well known. So, for example, I speak at really big events across the UK. So if I know people are running big events, I'll ask them if I can speak at their events. Again, this might not be something that you want to do, but it's a great way of raising your profile. And if you've already got an event that you know 50 or 100 people are going to be at, that's 50 and 100 people that are now going to know who you are. In the magazine, one of the kind of tricks that I used to begin with was we wrote a list of the biggest, I want to say the biggest names, the most well-known names in the industry. Because some of the biggest are actually the least well-known. It's really bizarre how that works. But we wrote a list of some of the most renowned names in the industry. And then we started featuring them in the magazine for free. But the deal was that when they feature in the magazine, they have to share their feature to their network, either on the mailing list or on social media. So getting these people like Simon Zutcher to share us on their social media, which he's not done yet, but he will be doing because his issue has just gone to print, has been a fantastic way of getting us in front of their audiences. There's other people awards ceremonies. So this is me at the Real Life Awards with Mark Harvey. You might know Mark Harvey, who runs Real Life Group. And, being at those awards, I was a presenter there, so I was giving an award to someone. Just little things like that you can do to get your name out. And then the last image on the right is a podcast that I did. Feel free to listen to that. I don't know if it's narcissistic to say, but I thought it was a really interesting and fun episode. It's probably the best podcast that I've done. And in that, I talk a little bit about the journey of Blue Bricks, but I also talk about buying businesses and how it works behind the scenes and how I was taught to do that. But The Property Doctor is a really well-known podcast. And I just approached Andrew and said, hey, would you mind if I featured on your podcast and talked about X, Y, and Z? Delve into your story and delve into you and try and find something interesting that you can talk about. We get a lot of people, approaching us for Blue Bricks and saying, I want to feature. And they kind of get pushed to the back. What I like is the people that come to us and say, I want to feature because I've done this thing. And I think it will be beneficial to your audience because. So don't just say, I want to be on your podcast because it's going to raise my profile. Don't even just talk about yourself and your story, but talk about the benefit that your story or your property project has to that person's audience and how you can be interesting to them. So leverage established podcasts, leverage established events to get your name out there at a much quicker pace. And finally, my final point, go and be dope. So break your comfort zone because the hardest thing for you at the beginning, I don't know you personally, but for a lot of people, the hardest thing is the comfort zone. I don't want to speak at events. I don't feel confident public speaking. What if I go on this podcast and I mess up? I don't want to write an article because of imposter syndrome. We asked Paul Million to be the front cover feature. And because of imposter syndrome, he said no the first time around. So he wrote a small feature and made, over £400,000 in private finance. Now is needless to say he was over the moon to be asked to be on the front cover again. But just the point that people, even highly successful people, really struggle with that imposter syndrome. So break out of there. Dip your toe in the water. If you're a bit worried, maybe go on a lesser known podcast, maybe speak at a smaller event and build your way up. Put yourself out there as much as possible. If opportunities come up, take them. Speak at the event if you can speak at the event, even if it's just standing up for a minute and telling people about your business. Be you, be authentically you. Don't try and be someone you're not. Don't try and act more experienced or less experienced than you are. Just be your honest, true self. And a lot of people will be drawn to you. Some people might not like you, and that's fine. But if you're pretending to be someone else, you don't want to be surrounded by those people anyway. Be consistent. Don't expect super quick, instant results. Don't do one podcast and think an investor's going to ring you and give you £1 million. Just be consistent. Be on as many podcasts as you can be at. Speak at as many events as you can be at. Post to social media and in groups consistently. Just do whatever you're doing. Just do it consistently. It took us a year to get a little bit of traction. So, this isn't a get rich quick process. You've just got to be consistent and keep going. Be omnipresent, be everywhere you can be. If you can be in magazines and at events and on podcasts, fantastic. Just be everywhere you can be. Be on social media, be on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, be on everything. Get as many eyes on you as possible. And my final point is this. Remember, this is a marketing technique and it's called the 7 touch points. I think with investors it might be even more than 7. The number varies, but the point is people say that you need to have an average of 7 touch points before someone buys from you or invests in you. So that person needs to have communicated with you or seen you at least 7 times before they'll do business with you. So that could be a social media post and a podcast, and seeing you speak at an event, and seeing you in a magazine, and getting an email from you, and having a consultation call. You see how it goes. But by being omnipresent and being on multiple platforms, you get those touch points in much quicker than if someone just sees that one Facebook post that you do. So as part of this presentation is just telling you a bit about our partnership with LMPG and how it benefits you, because as you know, with LMPG, everything they do is about you and helping your property businesses. So the first thing that we do is 40% off our advertising packages. Now, this is a testimonial from one of our advertisers to give you the salient point. They basically made £30,000 in 3 months. Paul Million, like I say, made over £400,000. I have an ongoing joke with Blue Bricks that everyone I work with makes far more money than me, but it's a great feeling to be helping people. So if you run a business where you want more investors, you want to put your business in front of 14,000 people that could potentially invest in you. If you have a product or a service that landlords, property investors or property developers want, then this is the perfect opportunity for you to join our community, grow your profile, put your business next to some of the biggest names in the industry and get yourself out there with an absolutely outstanding discount from LMPG. We also offer you a reduced subscription price to the magazine itself, which gives you access to our bi-monthly magazine with interviews from some of the most renowned names in the industry. You'll also get access to 3 years worth of back issues, so you can see every magazine we've ever published. You also get access to our online and in-person events completely free of charge. Exclusive insights on changes in the property market. So we pay a PR lady to research what's going on in the market, what changes are happening from mortgage interest rates all the way to is the market going to boom or drop? And you get access to that as well. And then you also get access to our property power team. So the advertisers we work with, we vet them all. We say no to more people than we say yes to. And these people are highly credible, established businesses that do exclusive, consultation calls and help our members sometimes for free. And you get access to that by being a member. And what does it cost you? Just $2.99 a month. Normally, I would say that is a price of a cup of coffee, but I had a cup of coffee today, and that is a price of 2 cup of coffees these days, thanks to the rate of inflation. So, sorry, that's the price of half a cup of coffee these days, thanks to the price of inflation. So, if that's of interest to you, if you want to learn more about the property industry, keep your finger on the pulse of the property market, then this is for you. And the final offer is this: if you want to raise your profile. We offer members LMPG get a section in our magazine to feature one of their members. This is reserved for LMPG members only. So if you want a feature, email me at sam@bluebricksmagazine.com. I can't guarantee you'll feature, But what I will do is work with you to help you tell your story in a way that will be interesting to our readers. So we could feature a project that you've done. We could feature your story. Maybe you're an expert in a particular topic like lease options or flips, and we could talk about that. There'll definitely be something we can do together. So please email me, and I would love to help you grow your profile. That's all from me. So I'll hand back to you. I don't know if anyone's got any questions or anything.
It was brilliant, Sam. I anticipated, typically with these things, that I usually jump in and ask a few questions throughout, but it was so tremendously exhaustive that nothing needed clarifying. I didn't expect, and I've known you for a decent amount of time now, I didn't expect it to be quite as honest and bare bones, and this is how I built Blue Bricks magazine. But no, incredibly interesting to see. So in terms of questions then, guys, I should have mentioned this at the beginning. We've got this chat function here. I've already posted in it because, Sam, you skipped past, you didn't ask our members where are they in their property journey, because they had their cameras off, but they are still there, I promise you. So I asked it in the chat earlier on. Martin Scott's got 5 properties. Sarah Jane Edwards is refurbing her first buy-to-let property and is in the process of buying her second. Alistair Collier has got 3 buy-to-lets and 3 HMOs. And I'm purposely here, in case you've not noticed, reading out their full names: Martin Scott, Sarah Jane Edwards, Alistair Collier. And the reason for that is what you were talking about earlier on, about featuring in, oh, here we go, Gina Vegas. I have 2 properties and refurbishing my 3rd. You were mentioning about featuring in publications and featuring on other things and borrowing other people's audiences. Now, I can say, from our point of view, within the industry, because we work with a lot of very, very big companies, we've got quite a wide network ourselves. And of course, we've got some members that are brand new to it, and they've got 3 people that they know that do property, perhaps. Ruth Big has got 2 serviced accommodations and doing 2 refurbs on buy-to-lets. That's Ruth Big. And it's crazy how easy it is to use those other people's audiences, because every single company is looking for real life customers who are out there and doing something actively, who are active in the market, because they can link themselves to that customer and say, look, our customer's out there changing things and making money and doing whatever they're doing. From our point of view at LMPG, one of the best things that we like to see, and one of the best things that we like to share why people would be interested in LMPG, is members refurbs. So if you've got a refurb, great, you can kind of tell everyone that you know about it. But if everyone you know isn't that many people, then that's why we have, we're always sharing this kind of thing. It's your benefit, but it's also our benefit, because, let's be completely honest, we want to put you out on this pedestal so we can show, look, they did this using LMPG. And that's kind of similar to the reason we wanted to feature LMPG members. This isn't an opportunity for us to go in there and say, well, no, let's change that because you need to talk about LMPG more and you need to talk about how fantastic LMPG is. It's not a way of getting free advertising, but it's a way of us putting members out there, giving them that opportunity, and also saying, and they're a member of LMPG, so they must be, they must have their head screwed on. But yeah, from an outside perspective, I think it's easy to think, oh, they'll never feature me. They're never interested in what I'm doing because I'm just doing a single standard buy-to-let, or it's my first time, or whatever it is. But it couldn't be further from the truth.
Oh, completely. Like I agree, and it's like us for the advertisers. We want to demonstrate to advertisers that our readers and the people we're featuring are credible and experienced and doing things. So yeah, even if you're just doing your first ever buy-to-let, tell a story about that buy-to-let. You are right, and people want to be guilty by association in a good way, and it's always good to be featuring people that are real and doing stuff, and that's actually rare these days in property. So a lot of the people that are the most vocal are the people, when you scratch the surface, are probably doing the least.
Absolutely. And I think the good thing about property, in my opinion, is that it's always everyone's second career. So there's always a story before that of how I was this and now I'm that. And if it's not your second career, that's a story in itself. But No, look, really enjoyed the presentation. I did have a question about Paul Million. So you mentioned, and I didn't know this, that he'd got £425,000 of funding for featuring in Blue Bricks, which must have been very nice for you to hear and not kind of not participate in. But what was this article about then? Because it must have been some article to attract that level of investment.
Yeah, so first of all, it was lovely to hear. It'd have been even nicer if I got like a 10% kickback scheme, but it is what it is. Yeah, so that article was in COVID. So it was when Caroline owned the magazine. And I was asking him about this the other day because I didn't actually know about this until the presentation. I'd heard that Paul had got a bit of private finance from writing in Blue Bricks. I didn't realize it was that much until I asked him. So I'm really glad I did this presentation because it's given me a brilliant case study too. So basically what Paul did was we had a small section that was how people were investing in COVID and how they were holding up in the market, I believe it was. It was only actually a small section about Paul's experience and what he was currently doing investing now. And it was an investor at Reddit. And I think it wasn't just the experience Paul showed. I think it was just that resonated with him. If you've ever met Paul, he's got a very particular way of speaking. He's a very, very, very unique individual in all the right ways.
You're being incredibly
yeah.
polite in the way you're describing it. I have met Paul, and he talks at a million miles an hour, and he throws 15 ideas at you at once, and then he gets distracted by something else. I imagine that's what you mean.
Yeah, a bit like that. Someone once described him to me as being a bit like an evil genius. And I love Paul. He's one of my favorite people in property, and I think it was because Paul was again so authentically himself and just to him through and through. I think someone just really resonated with that. And if you join Blue Bricks magazine using that QR code, you can download that issue that Paul featured in, and also the issue with Paul on the front cover. And if you read his article, you'll see exactly what I mean. He types exactly how he talks, and it's one of the most unique articles we've ever had. So I think it comes back to we're a good article, but also just being himself.
I think that's a great point because I've seen his social media posts and the property thing group that he's got on Facebook, and they're very interesting, but they're also very long and cover about 15 subjects at a time. So I would imagine that consistency, if he were to put an article out in your magazine and it be almost ghost written or not his tone of voice, then people would think, oh, who cares, right? It wouldn't associate with him, but he's kind of got a brand in the way that he speaks.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, the way that we interview people is we don't write the magazine like QA. The people that feature in the magazine write it themselves, or we interview it and then write it on their behalf. And what that means is you get their tone, you get the way that they speak, you get their advice word for word, and it's much better. It creates a much stronger bond with the reader, a much better rapport than if someone else just writes it on your behalf in a really robotic Q&A way. The personality doesn't come through and it gets a bit lost.
Absolutely. The other question about Paul Million that I had is the bazooka that he's got when he does finally feature on the front cover. Is that a real bazooka? I thought that at the time.
It's not, no. I thought it was for a little while, and it wasn't until we put it on the front cover that I realised it wasn't. It was photoshopped in because I forgot what he calls. He has a refurb crew, and he calls them something stupid now, like the Grenaders or something like that. It's something really bizarre, and I think the bazooka was just a joke on that. He sent me the picture for a laugh, and I just thought that's going on the front cover because it's different, be dope. And he got a bit of a shock. So yeah, no, it's
absolutely. Not. I had no idea. It's a good Photoshop. It's a very good Photoshop. Go on.
I was just saying, I don't know if some kind of legal body will come back to me one day and say that maybe
you can't use our bazooka. We've got a chat from here in Martin that says that the QR code is partially blocked. Now, that might be a simple case of moving your own speakers, because it's fine on my side. My speakers are at the top of the screen. But Sam, if you could do us a favor and post this into the Facebook group tomorrow, and just say, look, in case anyone missed it, this is where it is. But before we close up tonight, because we know we've got the big game of the century, Leicester versus Liverpool, and I think they've just kicked off, so we don't want to be missing that, do we, guys? I did have one final kind of, I guess, story or kind of a question, but I just wanted to pick up on what you mentioned about awards. So first off, good luck, congratulations on the Cambridgeshire Business Person Award. I hope you at least fake the accent at the ceremony. Otherwise, you've made a mockery of that county. But we had this year a Johnston's Trade Paints, huge company. PPG is in, I think, the FTSE 500, one of the biggest kind of international companies on the planet. And they do a Painter of the Year award every single year. Now, it has never occurred to me that our members can enter this award. It's just, I've always seen it as a trade thing. But of course, our members collectively buy £600,000 worth of paint from Johnston's every single year. We're one of their biggest customers in the UK. In fact, I was talking to a couple of contractors, one guy that had repainted, well, he'd not done it, he's got a team, of course, repainted Heathrow Airport a couple of years ago. We spend more than them, and yet we've always seen ourselves as an exception to this kind of award. Until a member of ours, Alex and Blair Colley, who are doing a care home development up in Ayr in Scotland, they decided to give it a punt and to enter themselves for this award. Now, they only went and got shortlisted and were invited to the big kind of night out and everything else, all because they thought, well, hold on, we're buying this stuff. We're doing kind of, there's a residential category. We're doing residential painting. What's to stop us entering? And that's all it took. It never occurred to me, having working with this company for however long, that our members can be part of that. So sometimes it can be really as easy as that and as simple as that. And now they are shortlisted for a professional trade award with one of the biggest companies in the UK, or sorry, in the world rather, simply because they thought, oh yeah, we'll give it a go. Now, I'll admit their project was really good as well, which helps. But if they hadn't have done that, I don't think I'd have even realised to this day that members could have entered that award as well.
Yeah, no, you can do. Really, with a lot of awards, it's almost like a writing competition, like who can submit the best submission. Key thing to do, either hire a copywriter if it's an award that you really want to win, or just when you're writing, check it against them, and I'll show you a really cool trick for this. Check it against the specification. So on one screen, this is a spec for the award. When you're writing your submission, make sure you touch on every single one of those points. And then if in doubt, go to ChatGPT, put the specification in, just say, this is a specification for an award, and then say, does my submission match all the specifications on this award, and how can it be improved? And then ChatGPT will give you the thumbs up and say, it matches all the points, or it will say, you missed this point about how it helps the community. Touch on this a bit more. So that's another thing you can do for that second set of eyes.
That's yeah, that's cheeky, isn't it? But I can't say that you would be the only one doing that kind of thing. Yeah, I've got nothing else to add. I didn't think you were going to say ChatGPT.
No, well, no, I didn't. No, don't use it to write the submission, but you can use it to check that your submission matches the points of the award. So more like a proofreader. No, don't use it to write your award. That would be immoral.
Well, yeah, it might also not be very good at it, but it's good for proofreading perhaps. So look, Alistair said good luck. He's dropping off, but good luck at your event tomorrow. Thank you so much, Sam, for your time this evening. As I said, I don't know quite what I was expecting, but I didn't expect it to be quite as open and honest as it has been. And there's certainly a lot of, it's not just mindset, you know. you need to think like this, you need to do this, but there's no practical advice. I think there's been a lot of really practical steps that people can start to action really tomorrow with no budget whatsoever, to start to build it. But the important thing, as you mentioned, is consistency. So thank you so much for your time tonight, and I do hope that our members will kind of use this advice and propel themselves going forward. Hey, look, you could be on this time next year. I might be bloody interviewing you, because you've done everything that Sam's done over the last year. So thank you so much for that. Members, next month we've got the big fish. The big fish is back. The Moby Dick whale. A whale's not a fish, so whatever the largest fish is, probably a shark of some description, I imagine. Magnet will be back into the lock-in. So they've done just about every series, this one, but perhaps this is their biggest one to date. You probably have heard on Facebook and through email and everywhere else that we contact you, that Magnet are going through a lot of changes. All those changes are scheduled for Q4 of this year, and October is the beginning of Q4. So we will be seeing, we're getting a bit of feedback here. Sorry, Martin, I've had to mute you. We will be finding out from the horse's mouth, as it were, what those changes are going to be, when they're going to institute them. I'm going to give you a spoiler for what one of the changes is, because these bloody branch managers keep saying, oh yeah, LMPG, we're closing that account. We are going nowhere. The account is going to get better and better and better. We're going to have access to more ranges. We're going to, the trade stores are going to get a better kind of experience to look after LMPG members. The whole thing's improving, it's leveling up, and we'll be going through exactly what that looks like about this time next month. And it'll also be Halloween. So Laura tells me she's going to dress up, right?
Sure, I'll bring my witch's hat.
She'll bring her witch's hat. That's nice. So I'll see you then. Until then, have a great time. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And Sam, thank you again so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I hope everyone has a wonderful evening.
Cheers.